Hello everybody, welcome to today's Appeon community webinar. Today's webinar will focus on using Dropbox REST API from PowerBuilder. You will learn how to set up a service account in Dropbox, generate an OAuth2 access token, and make use of the REST APIs from PowerBuilder. Today's community presenter is Kevin Ridley, a longtime PowerBuilder developer and also an MVP. Before we turn it over to Kevin, we wanted to point out that this is a volunteer-based community presentation. As such, the views and opinions may not necessarily reflect those of Appeon, and Appeon has not reviewed this content for accuracy. Alright, Kevin, take it away.
Okay, let's start with the agenda. We'll go over Dropbox service account. Why would you use a service account? We will create a service account and show you how to create your own. And once you have a service account created, we'll show you how to generate the OAuth access token that you use for your REST calls. Then we'll get into the APIs. First we'll do the files folder. Next we'll do files download. And finally we'll do files upload. After each section we'll do a demo, followed by a code review of each section. And then we'll have questions at the end. Okay, for me, I have been doing PowerBuilder since version 3, all the way up through the current 2017 R3. Other key skills: SQL, EA Server, done many EA Server projects, a lot of conversions coming up, I think. Java, Agile, I'm SAFe certified as well. Web services, done a lot of SOAP in the past, and now we're getting into almost exclusively REST. I've done SDLC projects as well, and then along with the REST services, you pretty much have to know JSON now, so brushed up on my JSON skills. Alright, instead of recent projects, I do most interesting projects. Had a few of them over the years, most recently with the state of New Hampshire. They had a master client index they wanted to incorporate into their PowerBuilder SACWIS system, and that was basically another name for master person index. They were trying to keep from having duplicates across all of their different systems for the state, and that was done with PowerBuilder. That was, I believe, 12.5 and SOAP web services. Next, for the state of Connecticut State Police, created an in-car GPS and incident management system, and that runs in, at the time it was over 800 cars, and we use PowerBuilder, EA Server, SQL Server, and of course we use mobile for the internet. And back in the day, in the mid-90s, we created the first real-time dial-up PC banking system in the United States. There was a system for Quicken at the time as well, but they were a day behind. They would take feeds from their different clients and load their database at night, so you were always a day behind. We were actually real time. That was for People's Bank. Again, it was the mid-90s. We used PowerBuilder, I think it was version 4, and of course modem, bulletin board system to answer the call, OS2, and Unisys for the back end. And what am I up to now? Currently contracting for the state of Connecticut, DCF, which is Department of Children and Families. I also do some freelance work, and there's my LinkedIn information if you need to contact me for that. Okay, one more disclaimer. This is my first webinar, so go easy on me. Alright, what is a service account? Service account is basically a user account that's set up for automation. Some may be familiar with using a service account for email. It's very similar to that. You can set up security for that user account to limit access to resources. And now we'll get into how you create your Dropbox service account. The first thing you need is a user account. You need to have a regular Dropbox user account. So this demo, we're assuming you already have a Dropbox user account. So then you just go to the Dropbox app console. This is the URL for that. And once you're there, You're going to click on Create App. Then you're going to choose the API. You have a choice between the regular Dropbox API and the business API. We're going to use the regular Dropbox. Type of access, you can limit to a folder or you can use full. We're going to say full for this demo. Then you just name your app, anything you want, and click Create. Let's go over the app key, app secret, and access tokens. So in a normal access flow, and Dropbox is not normal, they do it a little bit different. We'll get to that in a minute. Normal OAuth password flow is you create your service account and they give you a client ID. Sometimes you generate a client secret. Sometimes it's given. And then you use your user ID and password along with the client ID and client secret to create a token request. And they'll usually give you an endpoint that you'll connect to, and you'll give this information in a request, and then you'll get your token response, and that will have the access token contained in it, assuming all your information is correct. Now the Dropbox OAuth flow is a little bit different. So you create your service account, and within your service account you're going to generate the access token. You just click, there's a button, Generate, and under the Service App Settings folder, and you're going to, in the Generate Access Token section, you're going to click the Generate button, and you'll see your token displayed. You pretty much just cut and paste it, and then you put it in your app somewhere. You can either put it in a database or an instance variable or something like that, and that's it. And you use that particular token that you generated for all of your REST API calls. There's no need for a token request. So let's get into it and show it. Okay, here is the app console, and you'll see my apps. I have two apps that I created. The original Appeon demo one that I created, and then I did a secondary test KR. So I'm going to go along with what we said in the prior slide where we create app and get the screen here. I'm going to choose an API. Again, you can choose the Dropbox Business API if you're doing that, but we're going to use the regular Dropbox API. And you click the type of access. We're going to say full. Like I said, you can limit to a particular folder if you wanted to. We're going to say full. Name your app. Say test KR, and then you just click Create App. I'm not going to do that because I've already created my test KR app. And just go back and show you that. So here's the test KR. We're going to go into that. And you'll see the settings tab here. We scroll down a little bit. We'll see our app key, app secret. Click the show. It's not really important for Dropbox because, like I said, you don't make a token request. You're going to generate the token. There's a redirect URI, and sometimes you'll need that if you're using a web app to get your token. But again, like I said, I don't know why they even have that here because you're just going to generate the token right here. Click Generate, and boom, here is your access token. And I'm just going to copy that. And we'll go into PowerBuilder. And I have a non-visual object, and as an instance variable I have a constant called access token, and I'm just going to replace the existing one I had with the one I just generated. Save that, and that's it. We're ready to make our REST API calls. Okay, let's get into the API now. First we'll do the files folder, and first you'll see here the documentation for the full Dropbox API, and then followed by just the files folder API is here, this link. Basically what the files folder is a directory of your Dropbox account, and it shows both files and folders. And let's get into show you what my Dropbox looks like. Alright, here's my Dropbox home. You see I have a folder called Appeon demo, another folder called KR share, and there's a couple of files there that pretty much come with Dropbox. One's PDF and one is .url. So when we do our directory, if we don't put in a folder as an argument, this is what we're going to get. Here, the home page, and you'll see we'll get these two folders and then the two files listed as well. So let's go back. All right, here's our REST API. So the input is going to be JSON. The only argument you have to pass is path, and you can leave it blank if you want your home page, or you can put a slash in your folder name for whatever particular folder you want. Some other arguments you can use are recursive. If you want to get everything, you can say recursive true. And then there's a bunch of other arguments we're not going to get into. We're just going to use the path one. Output is JSON. Part of the JSON is an array called entries, and within that array there's file records and folder records, if those are actually in your home page or whatever folder you search on. All right, let's get into the demo. So we saw what our home page looks like. Review it quickly. A couple of folders, a couple of files. Let's run the app. Just created a simple page here where you can enter your Dropbox folder and click show, or if you don't put in anything, it'll show your home page. When you click show here, you'll see a response down here, the JSON that comes back, and then I parse that JSON to this data window above it here. So let's see what happens. Click show, and you'll see, just like on our home page, there's a folder called KR Share, another folder called Appeon Demo, and two files. And like I said, this is our response JSON here, and that's been parsed, and I use the import JSON function to bring it into the data window. Now you'll notice, if you look at the JSON carefully, we'll break it down. Like I said, here's the entries object, and within that there's an array. You'll see by the bracket here, and within that there's some JSON, and you start out with a tag of folder, and then here's your folder information, KR Share, and then the path and some other information there. And then you'll find the next record here, right here, I'll say tag is folder, and the name is Appeon Demo, and then you'll see some more information again. And if we look a little bit farther, we'll find the next tag, and that's for a file, and the name is Get Started with Dropbox paper.url, and then again some more information, and then there's one more file in there. Here's the end of the array, and there's another field called cursor and some other stuff that we're not going to worry about at the moment. If you really got into it, each JSON is a little bit different for the file and the folder, but for the most part they're the same for the first about 5 or 6 fields. So I've set up only one data window, and I'm doing basically just displaying records for both. And then you don't, if I scroll to the right here, you see you don't get the content hash or the size of the folders because the records are a little bit different. I could do 2 separate data windows, one for the folder and one for the file, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it simple. So you'll see in the code later, I'll show you that. So basically, this is the file folder. If we double click, I've got this set up. If we double click on the data window, if it's a file, it'll download, and if it's a folder, we'll run the files folder API again. So if we want to see what's in the KR Share, we'll double click it, and there should be nothing in that folder. And yeah, see nothing in the data window, and here entries is just blank. So if we go back, get rid of the folder, click show, If we go into Appeon demo, we'll see there's 3 files in there. And again, the response is down here, JSON. All right, that's it for that particular demo. Let's get into the code. All right, on the button click for the show, you'll see we use the JSON package object, and that's to process the response. I like to use JSON package instead of JSON parser. It's a little bit easier to work with, in my opinion. I have an instance variable for my non-visual object, so if it's not already created, if we haven't done anything yet, then we create it. I also reset the response MLE and also the data window. So then I see if there's anything in the SLE text for the folder, and I pass that into my function here. I call the OF files folder. I pass in the folder if there is one, and then I pass by reference header and body strings. I check the return code on that. If the return code is 1, is good return. And I create my JSON package object. I take the JSON string, which is in the LS body, and we'll show what the non-visual is doing in a minute. But then we call load string with the package, JSON package object. And then in the JSON package, again, I call get value, and that's entries on the entries object. And that'll give me some more JSON. Okay. So here's something that was tricky about Dropbox. If you're in a folder, the response is a little bit different. The records are a little bit different versus if you're just on the home page. So I set up 2 different data windows, and I can show those in a little bit. One is a regular file folder, and the other one is no parent if you're in the home. If you're on the home page. And then I just import JSON, and I also take the full body and the response, and I put it in the multi-line edit. If there's an error, I display that in the MLE response. Okay, here's the NVO code. So here we're going to use the OAuth client. We're going to create an OAuth request. Resource response, we'll get into that. I'm using the JSON generator just to demo it. The JSON for this is pretty easy. I've commented it out here, but you could also just do it like I have here. Set up a string variable and create the JSON, since it's just a string anyway. You create it yourself. And if you want to say path, and you could say whatever the path is. In that case, Appeon demo. Alright, so instead we're going to create the JSON generator. You're going to create a root. So we're going to say create JSON object. That'll give us a handle to the root. We're going to add item string on the root, a path, and whatever we passed into the argument as an argument to the function. And then that's it. We're going to say get JSON string, and that'll return the string that we need to pass to the function. Alright, in this case, in this particular API, the files folder, you need to pass the JSON in the body. So we're going to take the string, the JSON string, and we're going to convert it to a blob, encoding UTF-8, and then we create our OAuth client. And we're going to set the request method as post. I'm going to set some header arguments here. I'm going to say we're going to accept. This user agent isn't really necessary, but just put it anyway. I'm going to say accept application JSON, content type, also application JSON, and here's where we set the access token. And again, that's my instance variable constant that we showed before I cut and paste into. Here is the endpoint for that particular API. It's api.dropbox.com/2 files list folder. And then we're going to set the body of the request to the blob that we created above. And then that's it. We call request resource on the OAuth client. We pass in our request, and it fills in the response object. If the return code is 1, we're going to get the body out of that. I'm going to put it into the argument I set up as reference. And then we're going to also get the header into the other reference variable. Otherwise, if it's an error, we set the return code to -1, and we set the body. Again, that's a reference variable, and we set it to the string. And we get the status code and the status text. And again, I like to wrap all my function calls with a try catch. So here's a catch runtime error that will basically catch anything. And again, we're going to return the error as the body here. And then finally, we're going to do our cleanup. The two objects that we created, I always do an if is valid. Then we're going to destroy it. And that's it for that call. Next is the files download API. First we have the documentation for it here. And this is just downloading a file from your account. This is why it's nice to have the files folder also, because you need to know the file name as well as the folder it's in. So if you have the other API working, then you can get a list like we'll show in our demo, and you can select the file there and you'll have all your information that you need for this API. The input, again, is the folder path, and it has to include the file name as well. And here's what it looks like in the JSON. This is copied directly from the documentation, so it's not the actual file we'll be downloading. And you'll see here this is a homework folder, and it's got a math subfolder, and the file name is primenumbers.txt. And again, simple JSON. Output is JSON with a data stream. And what you do with that data stream is you just use file open, file write ex, and file close to create the file from the stream. Let's see how that works. Alright, we'll do our files folder show. We'll go into the Appeon demo folder since we know there's some files there. And we'll try this Appeon JPEG file. And there we go, successful file download. Over here you see our response. This is the header response. And there's some JSON in here with some metadata about the file. And let's go take a look at the file. So I didn't put a folder to download it to, so it goes to the application folder. And you'll see here Appeon JPEG. I'm going to go ahead and delete this file. And then we'll see, delete this one also. That's another file we have on the server. Alright, we'll come in here and download it again. And there it is. Okay, we'll double click on it to show. And there it is, right from the Appeon website. And just for fun, we'll download the other file as well. There we go. And we'll look in the folder, and there it is. Alright, that's it for the download. Okay, let's see what the code looks like. And we're inside the double-clicked event of the data window. We're going to use our JSON package again. We're going to reset our MLE response text. If we haven't double-clicked on a valid row, we're going to just return right out of this event. And if we haven't created our Dropbox non-visual, we're going to go ahead and create it. Alright, here's where we get our values from the data window. We're going to get 3 values. We're going to get tag, name, and path lower from the data window. The tag, if you remember from the JSON before, is either going to be file or folder. The name, if it's a file, is going to be the file name, and the path lower is going to be the path or folder on Dropbox where the file resides. Alright, so we decide whether whether it's a file or a folder. If it's a file, we're going to go ahead and do the download. If it's a folder, we're going to drill into the folder to see what's inside it. Alright, so first file, we're going to do the non-visual object OF download. We're going to pass in the file, we're going to pass in the folder, and then a string header variable by reference. I'm going to pass in a blob as well. Again, I'm doing the file creation inside the non-visual, so passing the blob in by reference is really just so we can see the value if we want to when it comes back out of the non-visual. But again, you don't have to do that. You can change that if you want to. Alright, return code of 1 is good. We're going to pop up a message box saying success. The file was successfully downloaded. We're going to take the header value that we passed by reference into the function, and we're going to populate the MLE response text with that, so we can see what was returned in the header. Otherwise, we're just going to pop a message box and say the file didn't download correctly. Alright, for folder, we're going to just call the OF files folder, which we've seen before. This time we're going to pass in the folder name because we've selected a folder. We're going to pass in the header and body by reference. If we get a good return code, we're going to reset the data window. We're going to create JSON package. We're going to use the package object to load string. And we're going to, from that string that was loaded, we're going to get the value for entries, which is that array. And then we're going to take that and we're going to put it into this data window here using the import JSON. And we're going to set the full JSON response in the MLE response. Of course, we're going to destroy the JSON package object. Otherwise, if it's a bad return, we're just going to display what was returned from the function in the MLE response. Let's see what's in the non-visual object, the OAuth download code. So we have, as usual, our OAuth client, OAuth request, resource response, a couple of string variables. And then here we're just going to go ahead and set the JSON as a string. We're not going to use the JSON generator. I already showed how to use that in the prior function. So here we're just going to say the string variable equals, and we're going to put the JSON right into the variable instead of using the JSON generator. And we're going to use the path, and we're going to use the file folder that we've passed into this function, which is basically the full path, folder and file name on the server. Okay, then we're going to create the OAuth client. Our request method is going to be post, and then we're going to set some header variables. User agent, again, Appeon demo for this, but you can really put in anything you want. Set header is important. The content type is important in the set header. We're going to say application octet stream because we're going to expect a return of a stream from this function call. And here's where we're going to pass the JSON, set header Dropbox API arg, and the JSON here that we've created above. And as always, so this one is going to go in the header. We're passing our JSON in the header as opposed to the body, which we did in the prior function call. So it's something a little bit different for this particular function. As always, we're going to do our set access token, and again, it's the constant variable that we have as an instance variable on the non-visual that we set before. The request URL is our endpoint. And since this one was copied, I just left this in here to say, nope, we're not going to put anything in the body, so we're not going to use the set body. And then we just call our request resource, passing in our request and our response. And if we get a good return code of 1, we're going to get the body, which was the stream. We're going to put that in a blob. And then we're going to just call file open for the file that we've passed to this function. We're going to do encoding ANSI on that file. And then we're going to do a file write EX. and write the full blob to that file. Then we close the file. Okay, and then AS header, we're going to say response.getHeaders, and that we pass by reference, so that's going to get passed back to the client. And if we have an error, we're going to just return -1, and then we're going to get the values from the response of get status code and get status text. And we're going to put that into the AS header, which is going to get returned to the client. And as always, we have our catch, and then finally, where we clean up anything we've created and haven't destroyed yet. And that's pretty much it for the OF download. Now the last API, files upload. We'll start out with the documentation for the files upload is here. The first link. Here is the API endpoint, files upload. And this is just simply taking a file from our PC, our folder, and putting it up onto our Dropbox folder. So our input is going to be JSON, and we're going to say this is just copy and pasted directly from the documentation. So we're going to say the path, and it's homework, and with the subfolder of math, and the file name is matrices.txt. And then there's some optional parameters like mode, auto rename, things like that. You can look at the documentation for what to use for that. We were only going to use path in our demo. Alright, the output is pure JSON. So you see here again, this is cut and pasted from the documentation. The file name, prime numbers.txt. See an ID on the server, and then a bunch of other metadata for that file that we've just uploaded. And I've created a data window for that, and we'll get into that later in the demo. Alright, and now it's time for the demo. Alright, so we'll do our usual show. This time we'll say KR share. I've already got the file up there, so let me go into my Dropbox. I'll go into KR share. Yep, there's our file. Let me delete that. And now it's gone. Alright, go back to PowerBuilder. And we'll say what's in the KR share folder, and now we'll see it's empty. See our entries. And we're going to say file upload. I select the folder here, and it gets passed to the next window when I do file upload here. You'll see KR share. That's passed in based on the folder that we selected in the other window. Select file. I'm going to go ahead and select my Elevate 2018 presentation, and see the full path here, and we'll upload it. And there it is. You'll see the name, Elevate 2018 Final, path, KR share, and then the file name, and then a bunch of the other metadata here. And I've put some of the information into a data window. And that's pretty much it for the file upload. Let's go back and see what the code looks like. Alright, so as I mentioned, we passed the folder name into the window. I'm not going to get into that. It's pretty simple. You just do open with Parm. So we have our select file button clicked. This is pretty simple, or normal PowerBuilder get file open name. I put the full path here into ls folder, and then I save an instance variable of just the file name. And then of course we put the full path in the SLE. Pretty basic stuff. Alright, here's the upload. Upload button clicked. We reset the MLE response. We set the file name in the folder. If the folder is not blank, So if the length is greater than 0, we're going to use this particular data object. Otherwise, if it is blank, we're going to use the no parent version the same. And again, this is, I don't know why Dropbox does this. It has different record layout for if you're inside of a folder or if you're just in the main your home page. So again, don't ask me why they do it, but they have two different record formats. So we have 2 different data objects. All right, this is more continuing of the upload button clicked. Again, if our NVO isn't created, we go ahead and create it, and we just call the OF upload file. We pass the file name, and then the full file and path, and then the folder that we're going to upload to, and then ls result is just a by reference variable. Okay, we reset, or we're going to say MLA response equals whatever returned in the result. If the return code is greater than 0, here's where we have some fun. The result is just going to be one line of JSON. If you want to put that into a data window, you have to put brackets around it. So I add brackets on the left and right, and then I call import JSON. And if there's a problem with that, I just pop up a message box. All right, here's the non-visual code for OF upload. You'll recognize the OAuth client, OAuth request, and resource response. Here's blob data. So that we're going to do the file read into that blob. All right, again, we could build JSON with the JSON generator, but it's so simple, it's just as easy. It's even easier to just do it like this. We create our own string here at the JSON, and we start our try catch. We do a file open in stream mode, and then if we have a good file number, we go ahead and do a file read ex into the blob. Otherwise, I included this because if say you're trying to upload a PowerBuilder file and you're in PowerBuilder and the file is in use, or anytime you have a file that's already in use, it's going to fail on the open of the file. So I included that. And then we just get into our function call. We create our OAuth client like in all the other ones. The method again is post. Set header user agent Appeon demo. Content type this time is also octet stream. The API arg, again Dropbox API arg ls JSON. Set access token. Always need that for every API call. Here is the URL or endpoint. And in this case, we do need the body, so we've done the file read and we put that into a blob, and we're putting the whole blob into the body. We're doing a set body there. And then we do a request resource, passing our request, and again getting the response populated. So if we get a good response, we do a get body, and that's into a string this time for AS result. That was passed by reference, if you remember, so that's going to go back to the client, and we return 1. Otherwise, we get the status text from the response and return -1. As always, we do our catch, and then finally we clean up our OAuth client that we've created. And that's it. If you have any questions, feel free. Now is a good time. And finally, a big thank you to everyone for attending the webinar. Hope it was helpful in showing you how to connect to Dropbox, display files and folders, and upload and download files. All of the code from this webinar will be uploaded to Code Exchange. Please let the Appeon team know what else you'd like to see, and hopefully we can make that happen. Thank you, and have a great day.